What's poppin', people? It's Dante. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to master street photography in 10 minutes. So I'm going to be distilling all the information that I've learned over a decade of practicing street photography and spoon feed it to you as quickly as possible in this video for you to go out there and to improve your photography. And so I'm going to share with you some photos, some behind the scenes videos, contact sheets, and some simple ideas that you can adopt on the streets. And so I'm going to share with you exactly how to get close and overcome fear as the first step to entering the realm of street photography, as I believe this is the first hurdle to overcome. And so essentially I've photographed all throughout the world in various communities and situations, such as for the front lines of conflict here in Palestine, and I've learned a bit about how to overcome fear in street photography. And so one of the things that I adapted in my process very early on was the use of an Instax camera. And so essentially I would carry an Instax camera with me when I visit a new location and gift prints to strangers. And what this allowed me to do was unlock the door to the multifaceted experiences that I can have in life. It also opened up physical doors where I was invited into homes to drink coffee, to drink tea, to experience different cultures in a more intimate way. You should go out there in the spirit of play and not take yourself so seriously. And so by carrying an Instax camera and presenting yourself openly like a tourist, like a playful photographer, and not this serious documentary photographer, you will actually make better photos, because this, to me, is the art of street photography. It's how you engage with humanity, and the way in which you engage with humanity will reflect back in the photographs you make. And so the Instax camera has become the passport for me, has become the tool that I've used to gain access to these different scenes, and has helped me overcome my fear and anxiety of practicing street photography. And so my action step for you is to go out there and to make 10 pictures of strangers with an Instax camera and gift them the print, and realize how beautiful the act of photography is, of gifting a stranger a print. And so ultimately, photography has nothing to do with photography, but photography has everything to do with how you engage with humanity out there in the open world on the front lines of life. And so I'm going to share with you a behind the scenes video to give you some practical ideas of how I engage with humanity, and hopefully you'll come home with a better understanding of how you can apply this to your street photography. Assalamu alaikum. Hey, it's okay? For me? Thank you. Very good. Very good. Assalamu alaikum. Tea is good. The chai is good. Very, very, very good. I like. It's okay. Very beautiful. Thank you. And so one of the things I like to do when I'm on the streets is embrace the spirit of play, to present myself with openness, with a smile on my face, where I'm invited into these coffee shops and gifted things for free. I'm invited into these locations sometimes very openly because of the way that I present myself through body language and through the way I interact at the scene. And so ultimately, I believe photography has nothing to do with photography, but how you engage with humanity. And I really wanted to emphasize that at the beginning of the video and give you this behind the scenes footage to see how I engage with the street, and to dispel this myth that the photographer can't interact at the scene to practice street photography. But there's a multifaceted way that you can play this game, and I encourage you to go out there and to follow your own path. And so I find that the visual side of photography is so simple, and that's why I didn't really want to discuss it right off the bat. But here we have my idea about composition. Ultimately, composition derives through intuition, and I find that photography is very simple. It's visual problem solving, and to create a composition, one must be physical. And so as much as photography is this visual game of putting together the foreground, middle ground, and background, and perceiving the world with sharp visual acuity and recognizing the patterns in nature and human behavior, we also must possess that gut instinct within ourselves to press the shutter and to make these different decisions physically through moving our 2 feet. And so so at this scene, as the car broke down, as I hugged and chugged at the top of the mountain in Wadi Kelt, Jericho, we had the car break down and I had to respond quickly on my toes, and I made the very simple compositional decision to include the car in the foreground of the frame. And so this was the first compositional decision that I made. And so as you can see, when I break down this composition, it's very simple. I'm making 3 decisions here: to place the car in the foreground, the people in the middle ground, and the blue sky in the background. And then when we put these all together, we have the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. And this was a decision that I made very intuitively and instinctively when I pressed the shutter. These different elements aligned, but it came through me positioning my physical body in relationship to the scene and the background. And so this was a very simple compositional breakdown to share with you about how I solve these visual puzzles. And so I find that there are 3 core principles that one must possess to go out there and to improve your photography. The first being courage, the second being curiosity, and the third being intuition. And so ultimately, a photograph I don't believe to be light on surface, a moment, etc., a story. I find that a photograph is a reflection of my courage, of my heart, core meaning heart. And so at the forefront of our practice as street photographers, we must have courage to go out there and to explore the open world. We must have the curiosity of a child to go out there and to see the world anew each day, and the intuition, that gut instinct to press the shutter. And to me, intuition is composition, and composition is a result of your intuition, of that gut instinct. And so I find that by going out there and simply walking more and photographing more, you will improve your photography. And so I have this action step for you to go out there and to try to make 1,000 pictures today. How curious are you? How driven are you with courage to go out there and to press the shutter? You know, I think that when you go out there and you make more pictures, you will improve your photography, because the more that you photograph, the more that you learn, and the more that you learn, the more you're going to want to go out there and to make more photographs. And so very simply, go out there and make some more photographs. And so I'm going to share with you exactly how to find your style and what I've done to find my own personal style. And so essentially, I found that by studying some of the masters of photography, I've been able to cultivate my own personal voice through finding what I like about certain photographers and putting them together into my own style. And so I encourage you to go out there and to find photo books, to stop looking at social media and Instagram for inspiration. But for me personally, I found that the works of Alex Webb, William Klein, Kudelka, and Larry Tal have shaped my vision. And so I encourage you to pick up a photo book and pick out 5 different photos and analyze why you like those photos and what makes the composition successful and what makes the photograph impactful. And through understanding these photographs and understanding these different bodies of work more in depth, you can apply some of this information into your photography. And so one of the first photographers that inspired me was William Klein, and the way in which he got close without fear to his subjects and photographed openly and interacted at the scene has very much influenced me in the way that I photograph. And so I have here a behind the scenes video of me interacting at a scene in Coney Island, and I'm photographing this woman as she's dancing with her friend, and I'm actually holding her speaker, and I'm not afraid to engage with life, right? I'm not afraid to be out there and to be open with my practice. And so this is the way in which I've adopted William Klein's approach to the streets, of him interacting at the scene and being engaged with humanity. And so I find that by being there and being present when I press the shutter and being this fly on the wall in these intimate scenes, I can increase my ability to make better street photography. And so you can see here in the result of the photograph a very similar image to Klein's, but I believe that through understanding the different ways in which a photographer works, or the ways in which they photograph, you can apply this understanding to your own practice. And so one of the photographers that have heavily inspired me is Alex Webb. His use of layering and depth, color and light is very much inspiring to me. The use of the foreground, middle ground, background to create dynamic images is one of the first things that I picked up through looking at his photography. And so by analyzing his compositions, I've learned that photography is like this visual puzzle, and in order to create a stronger photograph with more dynamics, one must include both the foreground, middle ground, and the background, and to synthesize these elements to create stronger frames. And so I found that by using light as a layer can create more drama in a frame. And so you can see the way in which the boy's eye is revealed from the shadow area in the frame, and the way the shadow is casted on the wall, and the way we have these different dynamics coming together at the scene to create layers in the photograph, where I have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background, and I set a stage here for this photograph to be made, where I'm positioning myself in relationship to the moment and the background, and combining the elements of the light and the shadow play, and sensing the possibility of something here occurring, and then being there and being prepared to press the shutter. And so one of the photographers that I love is Larry Tao. And Larry Tao approached the streets with the documentary approach, right? He wasn't a traditional street photographer, but approached the world as a documentary photographer. And this was an approach that I've adopted very early on and learned that was for me, because it allowed me to go out there and to get closer and closer to humanity, both physically and emotionally. And so I would spend a month, 2 months, 3 months at a time in locations, or even a year. You know, I spent time as a Peace Corps volunteer living under thatched roofs in Zambia, Africa. I slept on the floors of mosques in Jericho, and I've interacted with people, gifting people prints with my Instax camera to allow me to have this intimate moment to photograph. And so I encourage you to pick up the Instax camera if you're curious about the documentary approach, and allow that to be your passport to these experiences where the prayer session in the mosque shuts down and everyone comes out and gathers around and is drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes. And then I was simply just there and present and close to life when I pressed the shutter. And so I integrated myself within this community and learned about Islam and learned about prayer. And then I made some photos along the way. And so in photography, you might see some images and think that you got lucky. How'd you make that shot? Right? But I believe you can force your luck. And so here at Logan Square in Philadelphia, I made a photograph of a rainbow. But this came through repetition, consistency, and persistence at the scene, where I spent about 2 to 3 hours walking around this fountain, and then had the courage to jump into the fountain and position myself there by recognizing the patterns, recognizing where the rainbow reveals itself, recognizing how the children are playing upon the structure, and then force my luck to make the photograph. And so ultimately, what is the photographer responsible for? The photographer is responsible for where they position their physical body in relationship to the moment and the background. And so ultimately, when you look at the world this way as a visual puzzle for you to solve, and you're close and you're engaged with humanity, you can force your luck. You can come home with a photograph like this, where you actually can force this lucky moment of the bird in flight. You can force the rainbow and these dynamic scenes. It becomes very intuitive through going out there with consistency, repetition, and discipline, and being prepared to press the shutter. And so when you're out there and you're photographing, you're going to come home with lots of photos. And so I encourage you to make a sketchbook, to print out your photographs and make small thumbnails and paste them on your wall, and to study and analyze your own compositions. And so a very practical suggestion is to pick up the Canon Selfie CP1500 printer, and you can make your own sketchbooks. And so when you study your work, you'll learn more. And so just as much as you study the masters of photography, I also encourage you to study your own photography. And remember that the goal is curiosity. And so what does this mean? Essentially, the more you walk, the more you see. The more you see, the more you photograph. The more you photograph, the more curious you become, and the more you'll want to go out there and make more photos. And this is the goal. The goal is to make more photos. So I encourage you to shoot daily, to always carry a camera with you, to study photo books and learn from the best. Study your own photographs in your sketchbooks, and to be consistent, and to maybe discipline yourself to shooting with one camera and one lens, to eliminate decision fatigue and allow you to go out there on repeat. And so I encourage you to go out there, to move, to make more photos, and to improve your street photography, one must make more photos. And so that's my video for the day, how to master street photography very quickly. So thanks for watching. Peace.